What happens when a living legend sits down for what should be a simple conversation, only to face disrespect so raw, so cutting, that she walks out on live television? In just 34 seconds of pure chaos, one careless comment destroyed what was supposed to be a celebration and turned into one of the most shocking moments in talk show history. Chaka Khan walked onto that set as royalty, 10 Grammys, 5 decades in music, a voice that defined generations. She came to talk about her legacy, her new projects, her life. She came with grace. She came with stories. What she did not come for was to be treated like she didn't matter. The interview started normally enough. Jennifer Hudson welcomed Chaka onto the stage with applause and smiles. The audience cheered. Chaka sat down, looking elegant, poised, ready to share. Jennifer started with a question about Chaka's early days in music, and Chaka lit up. She talked about singing in small clubs, about finding her voice, about the struggle to make it in an industry that did not always welcome women like her. Jennifer nodded along, but something felt off. Her eyes kept darting to the side. She seemed distracted. When Chaka finished a heartfelt story about her first big break, Jennifer just said, "That's nice," and quickly moved on. No follow-up, no real interest. Just, "That's nice." Chaka paused. You could see it in her face, a flicker of confusion. But she kept going. She's a professional. She's been doing this for 50 years. She knows how to handle an awkward moment. Jennifer then asked about Chaka's hit songs, but before Chaka could really answer, Jennifer interrupted. She started talking about herself, about how she grew up listening to music, about her own career, about her own achievements. Chaka sat there, smile frozen, waiting for her turn to speak again. When Jennifer finally stopped talking about herself, she turned back to Chaka and said, "So, you've had a long career. That must be exhausting at your age." The audience went quiet. You could feel the tension. Chaka's expression changed. The warmth in her eyes cooled. She straightened in her chair and said, very calmly, "My age has nothing to do with my passion for music. I'm not exhausted. I'm inspired." Jennifer laughed. Not a kind laugh, a dismissive laugh. She waved her hand like she was brushing away Chaka's words and said, "Oh, come on. We all get tired. I mean, you've been doing this since, what, the 70s? That's a lifetime ago." Chaka did not laugh. She looked directly at Jennifer and said, "Yes, the 70s, when real music mattered, when artists had something to say." The air in that studio shifted. Everyone felt it. Jennifer's smile tightened. She clearly did not like that response. Instead of moving on gracefully, she doubled down. She leaned back in her chair with this smug look and said, "Well, music has evolved. Maybe that's hard for some people to understand." Chaka Khan, the woman who influenced countless artists, who paved the way for singers like Jennifer herself, just stared. She blinked slowly, processing what she just heard. Then she said, very quietly, "Evolved. Interesting word choice." Jennifer did not pick up on the warning in Chaka's tone. She kept going. She said, I think my generation brought something fresh, something new. We're not stuck in the past." That was it. That was the moment. Chaka Khan set her hands on the armrests of her chair. Her jaw tightened. She looked at Jennifer with an expression that could cut glass and said, "Stuck in the past? The past you're referring to is the foundation you're standing on. Without artists like me, there would be no platform for artists like you." The audience gasped. Some people started clapping. Others just sat in stunned silence. Jennifer's face went red. She clearly did not expect Chaka to push back. She tried to laugh it off, saying, "Oh, I didn't mean it like that. I just meant..." But Chaka was done. She held up one hand, stopping Jennifer mid-sentence. "You meant exactly what you said, and I heard you loud and clear." Jennifer scrambled. She tried to recover. She said, "Chaka, wait, can we just take a breath here? I think there's been a misunderstanding." Chaka shook her head. Her voice was steady, but you could hear the emotion underneath. "There's no misunderstanding. You invited me here. You asked me to share my story. And then you disrespected me. You talked over me. You made jokes about my age. You dismissed my contributions. Why did you even invite me?" Jennifer looked at the cameras, then back at Chaka. She was panicking now. She said, "I didn't mean to disrespect you. I have so much respect for you. You're a legend." Chaka stood up, slowly, deliberately. She looked down at Jennifer and said, "If I'm such a legend, maybe you should have treated me like one." The whole studio went silent. Producers were frozen. Camera operators did not know where to point their cameras. The audience did not move. Jennifer opened her mouth to say something, but nothing came out. She was speechless. Chaka adjusted her jacket, straightened her posture, and said, "I've been in this business for 5 decades. I've seen it all. I've been through things you couldn't imagine, and I've never, not once, let anyone make me feel small. I'm not about to start now." Jennifer tried one more time. She stood up, reaching out like she wanted to touch Chaka's arm. "Please, can we just talk about this? Off camera?" Chaka stepped back. She looked Jennifer dead in the eye and said, "There's nothing to talk about. You showed me exactly who you are. Thank you for that." And then she walked, right off the stage. The cameras followed her as she moved toward the exit. Her heels clicked on the floor. Every step echoed. She did not look back. She did not hesitate. She just left. Jennifer stood there, watching her go. Her mouth opened and closed like she wanted to call out, but she did not. The audience started whispering. Some people clapped for Chaka. Others looked uncomfortable. The producers rushed onto the stage, trying to figure out what to do. Jennifer just stood there, looking completely lost. One audience member shouted, "You messed up," and a few others agreed. Jennifer's face went from red to pale. She looked at the cameras and tried to smile, but it did not reach her eyes. She said weakly, We'll take a quick break." But the damage was done. The moment was captured. The disrespect was on full display. And Chaka Khan, the legend, walked out with her head held high. Let's rewind and break this down from the beginning, because this was not just one bad moment. This was a build-up. This was a series of choices that led to an explosion. When Chaka first sat down, she was warm. She was open. She was ready to connect. Jennifer's first question was about Chaka's early career, and Chaka gave a beautiful answer. She talked about growing up in Chicago. She talked about singing in church. She talked about the moment she realized music was her calling. But Jennifer barely acknowledged it. She just said, "That's nice," and moved on. That should have been the first red flag. When someone shares something personal, something meaningful, you engage, you ask questions, you show interest. Jennifer did none of that. Then Jennifer asked about Chaka's hit songs, but she did not let Chaka finish. She interrupted with her own story. She talked about listening to music as a kid. She talked about her own rise to fame. She made the conversation about herself. Chaka, to her credit, just smiled and waited. She's dealt with worse. She's been in rooms with people who tried to dim her light before. She knows how to be patient. But then came the age comment. "That must be exhausting at your age." That was not just rude. That was disrespectful. It was dismissive. It was a way of saying, "You're old. You're past your prime. You're irrelevant." And Chaka felt it. You could see it in the way her whole body stiffened. When Chaka responded, she was gracious. She said she was inspired, not exhausted. She tried to redirect the conversation. She tried to keep it positive, but Jennifer did not let her. Jennifer laughed. She mocked the idea that Chaka could still be passionate. She doubled down on the disrespect. That's when Chaka started to push back. She mentioned the 70s, when real music mattered. That was a subtle jab, but it was also the truth. Chaka was reminding Jennifer that there's a difference between chasing trends and creating art. Jennifer should have taken the hint. She should have backed off. Instead, she escalated. Music has evolved. Maybe that's hard for some people to understand. That line, that single line, that was the breaking point. Because what Jennifer was really saying was, "You're out of touch. You don't get it anymore. You're from a different era, and that era is over." To say that to Chaka Khan, to someone who has influenced everyone from Whitney Houston to Mary J. Blige to Beyoncé, to someone who literally shaped the sound of modern music, that was not just disrespectful, that was ignorant. Chaka's response was perfect. The past you're referring to is the foundation you're standing on. She did not yell. She did not curse. She did not lose her composure. She just stated a fact. A fact that Jennifer clearly did not want to hear. And Jennifer's reaction proved everything. She got defensive. She tried to backtrack. She tried to play it off as a joke, but it was too late. The words were out there. The disrespect was real, and Chaka was done. When Chaka said, "You showed me exactly who you are," that was the final blow. Because that's the truth, isn't it? People show you who they are through their actions, through their words, through how they treat others. And Jennifer showed Chaka that she did not value her, that she saw her as a relic, as someone to be tolerated, not celebrated. Chaka walking off that stage was not a tantrum. It was not an overreaction. It was self-respect. It was a woman who has given 50 years to her craft saying, I will not be disrespected. Not by you. Not by anyone. And the audience knew it. That's why some of them clapped. That's why someone shouted, "You messed up." They saw what happened. They saw Jennifer's smugness. They saw her dismissiveness. They saw her trying to diminish a legend. And they saw Chaka refuse to accept it. Jennifer's attempt to salvage the situation only made it worse. When she said, "I didn't mean to disrespect you," Chaka shut it down immediately, because intent does not erase impact. You can't say hurtful things and then hide behind, "I didn't mean it that way." The hurt is still there. The disrespect is still real. Chaka gave Jennifer multiple chances to course correct. When Jennifer made the first dismissive comment, Chaka stayed calm. When Jennifer interrupted her, Chaka waited patiently. When Jennifer made the age comment, Chaka responded with grace. It was only when Jennifer kept pushing, kept disrespecting, kept belittling, that Chaka decided enough was enough. And that walk-off, that iconic, powerful walk-off. Chaka did not storm off in anger. She did not throw anything. She did not yell. She simply stood up, said her piece, and left. With dignity, with strength, with the confidence of someone who knows her worth. Jennifer, on the other hand, crumbled. She stood there, frozen, not knowing what to do. She looked at the cameras like she was waiting for someone to save her. She tried to smile, but it looked painful. She called for a break, but everyone knew. Everyone saw. She had just disrespected one of the greatest artists of all time, and there was no coming back from that. The producers rushing onto the stage, the whispers in the audience, the stunned silence. All of it pointed to one thing. This was a disaster. This was a moment that would be talked about for years, not because of what Chaka did, but because of what Jennifer did. Let's talk about what this moment really represents. This was not just about one bad interview. This was about ego. This was about entitlement. This was about someone who forgot where they came from. Jennifer Hudson is talented. There's no denying that. She can sing. She can act. She's accomplished a lot in her career, but none of that gives her the right to disrespect the people who came before her, the people who fought for opportunities, the people who broke down barriers, the people who made it possible for her to even have a platform. Chaka Khan did not just sing songs. She changed music. She brought funk and soul and R&B together in ways no one had done before. She influenced generations of artists. She is, without exaggeration, one of the most important vocalists in history. And Jennifer treated her like an afterthought. That's the problem with some people who achieve success. They forget. They forget the struggles. They forget the sacrifices. They forget the legends who paved the way. They start to believe their own hype. They start to think they did it all on their own. And they lose respect for the people who built the road they're driving on. Jennifer's comments about music evolving, about her generation bringing something fresh, those comments revealed everything. They revealed that she sees herself as superior, as more relevant, as the future, while Chaka is the past. But that's not how it works. You don't erase history. You don't dismiss the people who came before you. You honor them. You learn from them. You build on what they created. Chaka understood this. When she said, "Without artists like me, there would be no platform for artists like you," she was not bragging. She was stating a fact that Jennifer should have already known, a fact that Jennifer should have respected. But instead of listening, Jennifer got defensive. She tried to justify her comments. She tried to make it seem like Chaka was overreacting. But the audience did not buy it. They saw through it. They knew who was in the wrong. And that's the other part of this story. The audience, the people watching, they matter. They saw everything. They heard every word. And they sided with Chaka. Because Chaka was right. Because Chaka was wronged. Because Chaka stood up for herself when she should not have had to. When that audience member shouted, "You messed up," it was not just one person's opinion. It was a reflection of what everyone was thinking. Jennifer messed up. Badly. And there was no way to fix it. The moment Chaka walked off that stage, the narrative was set. This was not going to be remembered as the time Chaka Khan overreacted. This was going to be remembered as the time Jennifer Hudson disrespected a legend and paid the price. And that's exactly what happened. The cameras captured everything. The tension, the disrespect, the pushback, the walk-off, all of it. And it spread. People talked about it. People debated it. But the overwhelming consensus was clear. Chaka was right. Jennifer was wrong. Think about the power of that moment. Chaka did not need to yell. She did not need to make a scene. She just needed to stand up and leave. And that simple act, that act of self-respect, spoke louder than any argument ever could, because that's what real power looks like. Real power is knowing your worth. Real power is refusing to be diminished. Real power is walking away from situations that do not serve you. And Chaka Khan showed us all what that looks like. Jennifer, on the other hand, showed us what happens when ego overtakes respect. When you're so focused on yourself that you forget to honor the people around you. When you're so caught up in your own success that you lose sight of the people who made that success possible. The saddest part of all this is that it did not have to happen. If Jennifer had just been respectful from the start, this could have been a beautiful interview. Chaka had stories to tell, wisdom to share, insights into a career that spanned 5 decades. But instead of creating a space for that, Jennifer made it about herself. And when Chaka tried to redirect, Jennifer pushed back. That's not how you treat a guest. That's not how you treat anyone, let alone a legend. And Chaka made sure Jennifer knew it. When Chaka said, "I've never let anyone make me feel small, and I'm not about to start now." That was a statement, a declaration, a reminder that she has survived worse than this, that she has faced bigger challenges, that she has overcome obstacles Jennifer could not imagine, and that she was not going to let this moment define her. But it did define Jennifer, at least in that moment. It defined her as someone who lacked respect, someone who lacked humility, someone who forgot that success is not just about talent, it's about character. And in that interview, Jennifer's character was on full display, and it was not pretty. The cameras catching Chaka's exit, the sound of her heels on the floor, the silence in the studio. It was all so powerful. Because it was real, it was raw, it was a moment of truth. And Jennifer standing there, watching Chaka leave, unable to do anything. That was the consequence. That was the result of her actions. She wanted to have a conversation, but she destroyed it with her ego. She wanted to celebrate a legend, but she disrespected her instead. And she lost. Not Chaka. Jennifer lost. Because at the end of the day, Chaka walked out of that studio with her dignity intact, with her reputation intact, with her legacy intact. She did not lose anything. If anything, she gained more respect, more admiration, more love from people who saw her stand up for herself. Jennifer, though. Jennifer walked away from that moment with a stain on her reputation, with questions about her character, with a reminder that talent alone is not enough. You have to be a good person. You have to treat people right. And she did not do that. This is the story of what happens when you disrespect a legend, when you let your ego override your judgment, when you forget that the people who came before you deserve honor, not dismissal. This is the story of Chaka Khan walking off a set because she refused to be treated as anything less than the icon she is. And this is the story of Jennifer Hudson learning a hard lesson about respect, a lesson she should have already known.